What is going on, guys? Nick Morton from the PHP Pros. This is episode 4, installment 4 of the Introduction to Programming or Programming 101. So today we're going to continue on variables. I'd like to touch on strings and constants and numbers. So the first thing I want to go over is strings, and with strings that are very important, I did touch on them for a majority of the previous video. They are very important. You're going to use them every single day in programming, no matter what the language is. You will always see strings, you'll always be using them, and they're actually really cool. And so with that being said, there are a lot of functions. If you guys remember the previous chapter, we talked about functions a little bit, but essentially functions allow us to run bits of code, and in PHP and many other languages, there are pre-built functions for us. So the PHP library that we're using, or the PHP version we're using, has a set of defined functions. And the ones that I've laid out are the ones that you guys will see in W3 schools if you're following along on that tutorial. So we'll go ahead and get started on this. Make sure you have opened up MAMP. Make sure you have opened up Atom with your file, and we'll get started. So now with strings, we can start to play around and learn what these functions will do. Like I said, I laid out the ones from W3 schools, and the first one we're going to use is called strlen, or string length. They just have shortened names because you wouldn't really want to type all of those words or letters. So this is the first one we'll go over, and I wrote a little note here for you guys in my comments to tell you exactly what it's doing. So I've written 3 strings here up top that we can play with. We can test the functions with, and you guys can use this. You can create your own, you can use 1, you can use 10, it's totally up to you. So the first thing we're going to do is run this for string 1. So if we say strlen of string 1, and we can echo that out so that we can see it on the screen. Okay. So now what we can do is come over here, refresh, and we're going to see the length of this string. So the length is the number of charge or characters in here. So if you went through and counted all of this, you would see 17 characters. That includes spaces, commas, exclamations, and so on. So the other cool thing that we can do with these functions is assign them to variables. So what we can do here is say str1 len equals this, and then what we can do is echo str1 len. Come back here, we're going to see 17 again. Okay, so just like, this is still in the variable section, so if you guys want to play around and get used to variables while we're learning functionality within variables, please do so. Okay, so now that we've gone through the first function, it's fairly straightforward. All of these will be actually. We can start on the second one now. So I'm just going to comment these out so that we're not showing them on the screen. And the next thing that we can do is, instead of knowing the number of characters in the string, we can actually know the number of words. So we'll go ahead and do this now, and we'll say echo str word count of str1. Okay, and now this should give us 2 because we have 2 words within the string. It is separated by space, obviously, so PHP already knows how to handle that for you. And there you go. We can try it with string 2 as well. This one will give us 5. So, go ahead and change these strings if you want. Make them a long sentence, make them a paragraph, make them whatever you want so you can test it and prove to yourself that it works. I promise you it does. But, I like to be shown things. So I don't blame you if you guys do that as well. So the next thing we can do is string reverse. I seldom ever use this. I don't know why you would. I don't know. There could be cases where you use it. I never really do, but I'll at least show you how it works. So we can echo string reverse of stay safe, which is string 3. And it's not going to just mix this as the first word. It's actually just going to go backwards. So the first character that you're going to see is this exclamation. The last you will see is this capital S. So we'll go ahead and run that. So it's, gibberish. I don't know, maybe you can read backwards. Good for you if you can. So the next thing that we can do is string position. Now this is a function that I use a lot, and you guys will use it a lot too. So this function is going to be a little bit different. Something I haven't mentioned to you guys yet in terms of functions is something called a parameter. A parameter means what you send to a function. So if you have a code block that you reuse, you can pass stuff into it. You can pass variables into it, or static strings, numbers, floats, whatever, into that function so that the function can be reused for any different parameter. So if I think of an example for math, right? You could add something up where you say x equals x plus 1, right? So if x is 2, x is now 3. If x is 3, x is now 4, and so on. So it allows us to send different parameters or different values, if you will, to be evaluated accordingly. So what we're going to need to do is send a second parameter. And the second parameter is going to be a substring. A substring, if you guys are familiar, I don't know what branch of math this would be, but inclusion, exclusion in terms of Venn diagrams and stuff like that, your ands and your ors and your basic logic, I guess you could call it. So what you would need is a substring, which is a piece which is less than or equal to the main piece, which is the full string. So what we can do here is say echo string position or string posts, and then what we want to do is send over our full string. So our full string, we can use welcome friends. So let's say our full string is string 1. Now what we want to do is find out the substring position. So let's say we want to find out where friends is within the welcome friends string, okay? And something that you guys will learn to understand and comprehend, it's going to come as second nature, you probably promise you'll get used to it. It is like this in computer systems. It is like this in every programming language, at least the ones that I've been taught. In coding, your first character set, your first position, your first index is always 0. As humans, we're taught to think of the first index of being 1. So the first alphabet or first letter in the alphabet is A. So if you had like a key map or a hash map or something, you could say that A is equal to index position 1. That is not true in computers. In computers, A is actually index position 0. I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you stick with me, it's just going to come as second nature and you're going to understand. If you've gotten into college classes that involve math and some that might touch on computer programming, even statistics, you're going to learn equations for exponentiation and so on. If you learn binary, you learn that 2 to the n minus 1, so that's where that kind of stuff ties in. I'm not I'm not a math professor, so don't quote me on that. If you want to understand more about that, look up some videos on that or look up a tutorial on that of just understanding why that position is 0 instead of 1. So keep in mind what I just told you while we get into the string position. It's going to help make this function understandable. So what we can do is say, I want the string position of friends within string 1. So what it's actually going to do is it's not going to give you the word number. So it wouldn't say, hey, it's at word 2 or in computer world word 1. What it's going to do is it's going to tell you the character position of this first letter. So it's not actually looking for this in particular as a whole. It's looking for this F, but it's also making sure that it completes the whole friends. So if I'll show you an example of what I mean. So let's go ahead and do this, right? And so if you guys want to count with me, we're going to find out where friends starts in string 1. So we'll count as we're used to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I must have an extra space. 10. Okay. So 10 is where the F starts. Now in computers, that's actually position 9. So when we echo this out, it's going to be n minus 1, which is 9, where n is our 10. So if we refresh, we're going to see 9. Now if I change this, and I'll show you what doesn't work. So if you just wanted to find the F you could do the same thing. You could just say string position of F. You can run that and you're gonna see 9 as well. So what this is actually doing is it's not saying, okay, I'm not only looking for the F in welcome friends, I'm looking for the whole string exactly. FRIENDS with an exclamation point. So if I do this, I change this to friends and I throw some extra characters in there, we're gonna get false or 0. 0 means false in computer world. I touched that in the last video, I believe, when we were talking about Boolean. So now we're going to see 0 or false, or actually it probably won't even print on the screen because it's null. So there you go. So we just saw nothing because it's false. Okay. The reason it's false is because this string as a whole does not exist in here. So let me copy this and change our first string to this. Okay, and now if we save that and run it, you guys should guess it, we're going to see 9 again. Because now this whole string exists, but we're going to tell you where the first position is of that string. Okay, so that's string position. Play with that one a lot because like I said, it's very important. Get used to the n-1. So you can, nobody's going to make fun of you, just even if you have to click and go 1 by 1 to count. Subtract 1 from it, and that should be the number printed out on the screen. So we'll go ahead and comment this out. And now this is another built-in function for strings that I use on a daily basis. So what this is going to do is allow us to use our full string, and then what we can do is we can take a substring and replace it. So I'll show you an example here. So if we say echo stir1, and I'm going to echo that break tag just so we can get stuff on a new line just for simplicity and visual purposes on the screen. So now then I can go and say echo str underscore replace or string replace. And this takes 3 parameters, okay? So if you see my function down here in the comments, I say your string old, your string new, and your main string. It does matter what position you put them in. You cannot mix these up, so you can't send string new first. They have to be exactly in the order that you tell it. In languages such as Python, it's a little bit easier because you can name out your parameters, but in PHP, we don't do that. We just go in order, 1, 2, 3 down the line. So now what we can do is look at an example, right? So we'll say that we want to replace friends within our first string, and we want to name it buddies. Okay. Third parameter, make sure you include it, is the string itself. Okay. When you're using string replace and also string position, they are case sensitive. Okay, so if you're looking for a capital F and it doesn't see a capital F, then it'll be false. Okay, so make sure that you remember that. Play around with it and get used to it. There's going to be things that you guys figure out on your own, which is why I'm not telling you every bit of detail because that would take a tremendous amount of time. There's going to be little nooks and crannies that you guys need to figure out for yourselves, and I want you to do that. That'll be good for you to understand these functions and these strings as well. So if we want to replace friends with buddies, we can come over here and we'll see welcome friends has now changed to welcome buddies. Okay, so that's how string replace works. Okay, so play with that as well. Similar to string position as well, it's only going to change things that it's finding to be true. So, if I add 2 extra characters like we did in string position, it's not going to be able to find this string, right? So what it's going to do is be false. It's not going to find this, so it's not going to replace it. So if we run this again, you can see here that it causes issues. Now on the reverse end, if I still have friends here, but this is, some odd set of characters as well, and we try running that, it's going to be no problem. It's going to find friends and piece it out of all of this mess and replace it with buddies, and it's just going to essentially forgive the rest and just leave it how it is. So that's how string replace works. Like I said, keep playing with these functions. I want it to get into numbers and constants, but we'll do that in the next video because this one's getting a little bit long. So stick around and I'll see you guys in episode 5.